Okay, welcome to the 1980 to 1981 block, where I spent about 18 months with the Tata Administrative Service. And this was my first job after I am Ahmedabad. So I will take you through these years. Now, the interview, um, I talked a little bit about this in the last session, and it went over many rounds, and there was this whole satellite city incident. But like 5 people from our batch at IM Ahmedabad joined TAS, and that was a lot. And so there were 11 of us totally. So it was a very large batch and a lot of fun as we joined together. Now, when we joined TAS, we had to find accommodation because Citibank was one of the places which sort of gave accommodation, but most companies didn't give accommodation. While we had salaries, the salaries were quite low. But so we had to kind of find our own accommodation. And those of us who were in a city which was not where our parents were, we kind of got together and we rented an apartment, which we got with a little difficulty because people didn't want to rent to, students or people who were just on their first job. But we actually rented this place in Manju Mahal in Pali Hill, which was like the film star area. So the movie stars and they kind of own apartments there in this place called Pali Hill. And later on, we realized that the apartment that we had rented actually belonged to an actor who had the screen name of Coca-Cola. And later, at some point in time, he visited us and was quite offended that we didn't recognize him. And he had to tell us that he was Coca-Cola. Anyway, so we set up what is called a chamari in this place called Manju Mahal, which of course some of the people translated it into Majnu Mahal, which was like Majnu, Laila Majnu is a very famous romantic story. So there were supposedly 5 to 6 eligible bachelors all staying together in this sort of film star type of area. So anyway, that was our chamri. And we would share expenses. We had a person who sort of did the cooking for us, the washing, the ironing, whatever. So he was our man Friday. And he was a guy called PD, and he loved it because we was just give him money. He would do the shopping, maybe keep some money from the shopping. He had a salary, and he enjoyed working for us rather than working in a home. And we liked his cooking, and so it worked out well. We also used to play a game called Cutthroat, which was like 3 people, like bridge, but there were only 3 people who used to play, and so you didn't know what the 4th hand was, and you just bid, and sometimes you went down a lot and things, and we had a scoring system, and a few of us, including me, were very good at this game, and a few were pretty bad and lost quite a lot of money. And we had some hilarious stories, but that's so the whole process of being in our first job, staying together, was quite a lot of fun, and we still remember it. And recently, we had a reunion of people, but in this reunion were only people who had stayed at some point in Manju Mahal, because there were people who stayed, then they left. Like when I moved to Jamshedpur with Telco, I left Manju Mahal. So I stayed in Manju Mahal for probably about 10 months. But then there were some people who stayed for less, more, whatever. So it was a floating population, but maybe there were like about 10 people who stayed in this place for a little while. And this was quite a sort of legendary Chamri. Um, and there. So in the reunion, the first reunion, we had it without spouses because we wanted to try and create the Manju Mahal atmosphere, but quite a few of our spouses knew each other because we'd remained friends over the years and in touch. So later on, while there was a lot of discussion about how we would choose a place where the spouses wouldn't want to come, but the next one that we had, the spouses did join us, and that was a lot of fun as well. So the whole program, the Tata Administrative Service, which was meant to take certain people who got selected and groom them to head Tata companies in the future. And some of the people who joined with us actually did that. But quite a few, like me and a few others, left TS to join other companies. But almost everyone who had joined the TS ended up doing quite well. And that was no surprise because the selection process was so rigorous. And we still have like a group of TS alumni who sort of loosely get together with each other. So it started off with orientation of the Tata group and the history of the group. Now, this was very interesting because we went through various departments and saw how far-sighted people like J.N. Tata, who had set up the original steel mill, Jamshedji Nasarwanji Tata, who was J.R.D. Tata's father, what a far-sighted person he was. And the group had things like worrying about industrial health and so on and so forth, way before it became necessary to worry about these things. So it was also a little bit ossified, because the Tatas were Parsis, and there were also like certain Parsi groups, a little bit of a Parsi culture, which was there in Bombay House, and it sort of gave you this thing of not necessarily being a very fast-moving group. And I think so Vipul and I had studied the group a little bit. Now we had a chance to look at it from the inside. But at least it reinforced my view that though the group was very good, it was a very, very slow moving group, which did not necessarily fit in with what I wanted to do, which is why I left. But it was also to do with the choice of the company that I made, because had I chosen something like Indian Hotels or the Taj Group or maybe Tata Burrows, which was the computer group at that time, and maybe it later became TCS. I don't know the history that well, but then I might have stuck around with Tatas. So another thing I remember about this orientation was that it was raining very hard, and we went to see some of the dams and power plants of the Tatas on Mulshi Lake. And we then took a boat when it was raining. We caught some fish, and then we went to the guest house, and then we grilled the fish and had it. And some of the guest houses and things that the Tatas had, there was one in this tea estate called Munnar, and things were really, really grand. And as TS, we were accorded a really special status. So it was very interesting. And then we had to do 2 to 3 month projects at 4 Tata companies. And this was like a rotation where we did a project with maybe the head of that particular company. And we were to, so it was a chance for us to see the company, for the company to see us, and see whether there was a good fit or not. So besides Telco, which I finally joined, I did a project at Tata Robbins Fraser, which was a material handling company, also in Jamshedpur. And I did a project at Indian Hotels in Bombay, which was very interesting because I could eat for free in any of the Taj restaurants in Bombay. And if someone ate with me, like if I took a girlfriend or a friend along, then they could eat for 50%. So I loved it for a while, but then got so bored of the food that I craved simple food. So I did a project which was very interesting for Taj, which was to see whether they should set up a 3-star hotel in Nagpur. And then after I visited Nagpur and looked at the place and looked at the existing hotels and did all this analysis, I came back with a very clear conclusion that no, Nagpur was not ready for a 3-star hotel. And it was kind of based on like the economics of a hotel, how much would, because you get some things from the people who stay in the hotel, and but you also want some of the local people to come and eat in the restaurants of the hotel and stuff. So, but Nagpur at that time was such a conservative place that and not ready to spend. So clearly the hotel project was not going to be viable, and uh, so Tata's decided, or the Taj Group decided, not to put up a hotel in Nagpur. So I ended up joining Telco. Now, one of the things which I had a little bee in my bonnet about was that though I had done management, I wanted to use my engineering talent as well. So I wanted to join an engineering company. So Telco made trucks, so it was a perfect fit, and they had an opening in Jamshedpur. So they had plants in Pune. There was the head office in Bombay, but I was keen to go and do the to work at a plant because then I would really get my hands dirty, understand engineering. So along with Arun Vaklu, who is another colleague and joined the TAS and was with me in IIM Ahmedabad, and he was also head of the student council at Ahmedabad. So both of us went to Jamshedpur, and I became the assistant manager for steel, and Arun Vaklu joined the HR department because he was always interested in motivation and leadership and things like that. So there were the two of us. Arun was married or got married while he was in Jamshedpur, and then he had a child as well, a daughter in Jamshedpur. So it was quite nice, and I really liked the fact that Arun and his wife were around. Because for me, Jamshedpur was a very strange place. I had not been exposed to the caste culture in India and the Hindu-Muslim kind of stuff, and how like a small town operated, where the newspaper was like a one-day late. So I was used only to the metros. So Jamshedpur was quite a revelation, and it was in Bihar, which was quite a like um, just outside the city of Jamshedpur was a Adivasi kind of tribal area, and there were farms, and it was quite dangerous to go out there. Arun sort of was very adventurous and went out, and I think he got an arrow in the ear because he decided to step out and try and break some sugarcane. So anyway, that was the environment in Jamshedpur. Now, Jamshedpur itself was an island, and there was the Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, and Telco, which were there, and they were on kind of opposite ends of the town. And the club was a big thing in for Telco, and officers like us could be members. And there was a billiards table and some, very old British type of stuff. So it was called the Golmuri Club. Now, I, as a TS person, was entitled because I was an assistant manager. And people from IIM Ahmedabad who joined Telco, but were not from TAS, were like about 8 years behind us who had joined through TAS and were assistant managers. So we were entitled to get a bungalow because by the time you did like 8 years of work, you were supposed to be married, have some kids, and all that kind of stuff. So I said, what am I going to do with this 3-bedroom place? So I decided to stay at the guest house of Telco, which was right at the gate, and I had like a personal valet and a butler, and all my meals were done, and the working hours were from 7 o'clock in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. So I also had to adjust to this time because Jamshedpur is far in the east, so the sun sets early. So I kind of almost felt that I had retired before I started working because my work was not very intense at all. And you couldn't ruffle too many feathers in the plant because the plant had a certain way of working. And especially the area that I was with materials and things like that, it was a bit of a dangerous area, as I later realized, because there was a fair amount of theft. And even things like engine blocks were stolen and black marketed and stuff like that. But anyway, so I didn't find working at Telco all that nice. Then I was also stressed because at some point in this whole process, my parents were very, very eager to get me married off, and they wanted me to marry a Bhargav. So I had done this trip, I think before I joined TAS or something, where I went around and met quite a few girls in quite a few cities like, Hyderabad, Lucknow, and whatever. And, I was kind of getting quite fed up of this. And, I didn't really put my foot down and say, no, I, don't want to get married. It was very customary to listen to your dad. So ultimately, there was a Bhargav girl that I liked in Hyderabad. And so I said, okay, fine. So we got engaged. And then later on, to this girl's credit, she felt that we were not a very good match because remember that, while I was an IIM Ahmedabad gold medalist, I was quite thin and certainly not, very macho. And she was, someone who danced and appeared on TV programs and so on and so forth. So, she was probably wanted a husband who was a little more dashing and macho or whatever. So though her father tried to pressurize her because he felt that, this match of trying to get an IIM gold medalist was something which was pretty uh, tough to get, but she stuck to her guns. And so we decided to sort of break the engagement. And so that was there. I was not enjoying my job. It was not easy to switch jobs because now you're sitting in Jamshedpur, which is very far from where the other companies are. But anyway, I just wrote a letter to Citibank saying that, look, I had interviewed with you guys, I joined TAS. This is what my background is, but I'm not very happy with the thing. So if you would like to interview me again, I would be happy to appear for an interview, and can we arrange that? But immediately and I gave my dad's address saying that please send your correspondence there. And then suddenly I got a call from my dad saying, I've got a telegram saying that Citibank says no need for an interview. There is a job ready for you if you want to join, but you must join by this date because they have a training program there. They want to send you, and you've got to. So finally, I had to rush and get myself relieved from Telco, which was not easy because they tried to convince me to stay. But once they saw that I'd made up my mind, then we decided that, okay, that it would be best for me to leave. And I ended up getting all the formalities for leaving, which was getting clearances from 100 places done, and managed to leave and join Citibank. So the story will continue in the next session. Thanks.